Thank you for leading that song, Dustin. That song really feeds into what we're going to talk about today. I'd like to reread the text this morning, Romans chapter 1, verse 18 through 21. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Let us pray. Holy Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for this text. And Father, as we consider the words that Paul gave us here in Romans first chapter, help us to see the truths that are in it, that those truths become our reality, and that they become the actions of our hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. It's a very graphic text, painting a picture, if you'll think about it. And we're going to try to show that picture here in just a moment of what this verse is saying. And if you want to sum it up, this text is saying the entire world is sinful before God, and God is right and just to punish man. That's kind of the bottom line of this text. And he explains why in this text. Well, let's think about the graphic of this text, the graphical illustration that's going on here. These first couple of verses, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Now, the graphic on the right is meant to illustrate what those words are saying. The wrath of God is illustrated by the lightning bolt that is coming down. That seems appropriate. The wrath of God, it's this lightning bolt. It's revealed from heaven. That's that cheesy little cloud up at the top of the slide there. That's heaven, that you see, and God's wrath is coming down out of heaven. It's being revealed from heaven. Now, it's being revealed against the ungodliness and unrighteousness of man. And so we've got a little explosion going on there of all the brokenness of mankind, all of our sin and all of our failings and all of the ways that we challenge God's created order. And here comes God's wrath down against the way that we violate his created order. And here's what it says about the way we violate his created order. It says that of our ungodliness and unrighteousness, that by their unrighteousness we suppress the truth. Pardon me. So Paul says there's a truth about God's created order, a truth about God's nature, a truth about God's world that he created, which is what he begins to talk about. And the truth about God's created order is hidden. And I've got that illustrated there with a little R.I.P. at truth gravestone. The truth of God is hidden or covered up by the sins that we commit, by the way that we violate God's created order. Let me give a couple of examples, a couple of simple ones maybe that help us see that. You know, if you walk up to the edge of a cliff, stand on the edge of that cliff and it's up really high, and you jump off that cliff, you just violated God's created order. God's created order includes gravity, and it includes the various biological activities of our body which don't do well when slammed against the ground at the acceleration rate of gravity. So you've just violated God's created order. And the result of that is you're going to pay the price for violating God's created order. Now, that's a simplified explanation of what this verse is saying, but it's nevertheless true no matter how you think about it. God has created this world with a perfect created order. And in that perfect created order, you and I show up and we begin to violate that created order. Now, I'll give you another example, truth, as is witnessed here by this tombstone. This world is filled with truth. The truth of the laws of nature, the truth of reality, the truth of so many things. Truth is a fundamental part of God's creation. It cannot be denied. Truth. Then we show up and start telling lies, lying about whatever, usually lying to make ourselves look better, and we lie. Our ungodliness and our unrighteousness is like a cloud over God's truth. God is going to punish that brokenness, that violation of God's created order. You could think of a number of ways that we could explain this. This is what Paul is saying. There is brokenness in this world, and God is going to punish that brokenness. Now, is God right to do that? I mean, that sounds a little cruel for God to punish brokenness. Well, that's exactly what the Apostle Paul is going to address here. He's going to answer that question. Is it right for God to do that? Is it right for God to bring down his wrath on our brokenness? I have a second slide to help illustrate that. Pardon me. He picks up after he says that it suppresses the truth by saying, here's why God is right to do this. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. So God has not hidden his created order. He hasn't hidden it. It's plain to see to those that are violating his created order. God has shown it to them. Therefore, God is right to punish, because it's evident. And he goes on to say, following that, shown it to them, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So the Apostle Paul says that nature, God's creation, makes known God. Even his invisible attributes are clearly seen by the things that God made. Now, I titled this is actually a sermon in a series that I've given through the years. I call this series God's Other Bible. You and I pick up the Bible and we read it, and we find God's wisdom here, as we should, and we find God's manner of life that we should follow as we should. But the Bible itself says there's another Bible we should be reading, if you'll let me say it that way. And the other Bible, he says, is the things that have been made. And it's based on the truths that God has embedded in the things that have been made, that he says he is right to judge the brokenness of mankind. Because he asserts in this text that the things that have been made reveal not just that there is a God, no, much more. It reveals the invisible attributes of God. And then he lists them off, namely his eternal power and divine nature. Creation, the stars, the bacteria in the water, the roses out in the flower bed, the little baby, all of nature reveals truths about God, and what it reveals are his invisible attributes. And it's because of the truths that God has embedded in nature, that catfish you caught last week, that dove that Han and I watch sometimes in the evening in our flower bed in the backyard. Every part of nature is declaring the invisible attributes of God, and because it's clearly seen ever since the beginning of time, the Apostle Paul says man is without excuse, and God is right to bring down his wrath on the brokenness of man. Now let's think about those named attributes of God, his invisible attributes. Number one, his eternal power. Two words. Eternal means it's time without end. Goes back in time, goes forward in time. Eternal. Power has to do with the work, the power, the force behind it all. And those two words, eternal power, bring up two words that are used quite often to describe God: omnipresence and omnipotence. Omnipresence speaks to eternity. God is eternal, but he's not just eternal in time, he's eternal in all of reality. God simultaneously exists in the present in all times. Before creation, during creation, after creation. That's a very complicated concept, and I won't speak much more of it. But it's a truth about if there is a creator God, that is one of the things that you are forced to conclude, that he is bigger and bolder and better than the creation. He exists beyond the boundaries of creation, both in reality and in time and many other ways. He is omnipresent. Eternal power, the ergonos, the force, the dynamos, sometimes the word is used to describe it. The power of God, that's the omnipotence. Not only does he exist beyond the boundaries of time, but he also has all power. If the Creator created this universe, what power would he not have? The power, I'll bet you Wes is going to talk about volcanoes this afternoon. The power of a volcano. If God created the forces that created a volcano, then God is more powerful than a volcano. The power of a sun going nova into a black hole. That power. Immeasurable power for us. If God created the cosmos, then he is more powerful than the power of a supernova going into a black hole. Whatever power you can imagine, God, if he's the creator, must have more power than that. Not just that, but all of the power of all of creation rolled into one being. That's the power of God. If there is a creator God, you must come to that conclusion. There is no other possible conclusion. A creator God cannot be a weak God. He cannot. He must be an all-powerful God. That's one of the divine attributes, one of these invisible attributes that's clearly seen if you just sat down on your back porch and watch creation for a little bit. His divine nature is the second one he enumerates. Divine, as in all knowledge. Divine speaks to that to some extent. All knowledge or omniscience, everything that can be known. Take every university, every book in every library, every piece of data in every database, and every piece of data in every database that has not yet been created. Take all of the knowledge of all time, of the entirety of the cosmos. If God created it, he must, by definition, have more knowledge than that. He must be greater than the thing that he created. He is omniscient. And I created a word this week. I have long been bothered by the fact that there's not another word here. And I looked up on the internet, how do you create a new word? Do I call up Webster and say, hey, I got a new word? Well, come to find out, it's actually not that hard. If you want to create a new word, you just create it and start using it on social media. Believe it or not, that's how Webster's and other English sources, that's how they determine if a word is real or not, is they see if people are using it on social media. Come out to the job site with me and I'll introduce you to some plumbers that will introduce you to some words you haven't heard too. So I'm not sure social media is the best way to do that, but that is how they do it. So I invented this word and I put it out there on social media, omni-order. Because God resolves all chaos. He is, if you will, let me say it this, the king of all order or rule. You don't have to look at creation very long to see that it is a very ordered creation. Things happen a certain way. There are laws of nature. Processes are repeatable, and it's true all around the entire universe, the entire cosmos. There is order, a lot of order, impressive, amazing order, magnificent order in this chaos. If there is order, then God, who created order, must be the omni of all that order. He is omni-order. And so use that word, use it out on Facebook, maybe we'll get a new word created. Right about now, you may be saying, boy, Brother Mike, if you're going to talk about this stuff for the next 30 minutes, then I'm just going to go ahead and get comfortable and take a nap. Because it's really heavy stuff. It is. It is. We're talking about things that great scholars and theologians, philosophers have talked about for thousands of years, written loads of books about it. It's very complicated stuff. And it's sometimes hard for us to get our hands around it. So I'm going to do something here to help bring this down to my level, if you will. There was a fellow that wrote a chapter in the Bible. His name was Agur. He wrote Proverbs chapter 30. It is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. I love this chapter. It is the working man's chapter in the Bible. If you're a working man, if you're an ordinary, common, everyday man, you got to go read this chapter. It's for you. It is a great chapter. Agur did in chapter 30 exactly what the Apostle Paul is telling us to do. He stopped and took a moment and looked at the things that God made and began to draw conclusions from the things that God made. And in doing that, he concluded, if you follow through his writing, he concluded truths about God. Well, we don't have time to look at everything he wrote, but we're going to look at some of the things he wrote and let him walk us through this process of understanding omnipresence and omnipotence and omniscience and omni-order and whatever other omni you want to come up with to describe this incredible thing that is God. And to understand why God is right to punish man. So he begins, chapter 30, verse 1. The words of Agur, the son of Jacob, the oracle. So this is something he would say. This is like he sits on the back porch talking to his grandkids, and this is the oracle he's going to give them. The man declares, I am weary, O God, I am weary, O God, and worn out. I am too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I knowledge of the Holy One. Agur says, you know what, if you took all the smart people in the world and put them in a skyscraper, with the smartest ones being at the top of the skyscraper, and then as they are less smart, they kind of go down the floors to the bottom. Agur says, I'd be living in a cardboard box out in the alley. I'm not an educated man. I did not go to Harvard, though that might be debate whether that necessarily is educated. But he says, I'm not an educated man. If you rank smart people, I'm not even on the rank. I'm not a smart man. And I'm an old man. I'm tired. I'm wore out. Think of that statement as this. Agur says, I've seen a lot in my life, and what I see troubles me. But I'm not a smart man. I'm not a wise man. You won't find me in the university talking philosophy. And I don't really know a whole lot about God. I'm not a theologian. I didn't attend divinity school. I don't really know a whole lot about God. But I'm going to share with you as he goes on some of my observations about nature, about this world. He's going to do exactly what the Apostle Paul said we should do. Look at the things that have been made and look for God's eternal power and his divine nature. Okay, Agur, let's do it. Let's see what you have to say. Verse 4. I've got the verses laid out in a bullet format to make them a little easier to think through. But it's the text. It's exactly the text. Verse 4. He asks some rhetorical questions. Rhetorical question is a question that doesn't necessarily need to be answered. The question itself almost provides its own answer. He says, who has ascended to heaven or come down? Now imagine Grandpa sitting on the back porch. He's not a scholar. He's an old man. He's just talking about what he's seen. Who has gone up to heaven and come down? Who's done that? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has wrapped up the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? What is his son's name? Surely you know, Mr. Smarty Pants. I added Mr. Smarty Pants. Okay. Anybody raise your hand? You gone to heaven, been back? Did you go up there? Did you go up to heaven and come back? You do that? Then why do you think you're God? What makes you think you are the boss of yourself if you haven't been to heaven and been back? Well, how about the wind? When the May 3rd tornado hit this city and 47 people were killed and millions of dollars of damage, I'm sure you were out here at the edge of town holding your hand up saying, let me just grab that thing and I'll stop it. You weren't? Why not? If you think you're powerful enough to guide your own way, why weren't you doing that? You saw our little construction site back here's got water all over it. All over town right now, construction sites are flooded with water, and that's going to shut the job down for a little while. Why don't we just walk out there and take a sack and grab up all that water, a garment, wrap up all that water and dry up that site? I'm sure a lot of you would do that right now if you could. Because we're not God. God is God and we're not. Now that's what he's concluding here. Who has established the ends of the earth? Think of that as the laws of nature. The laws that define this reality. Who made those? You have any luck breaking those? Well, yeah, we put men in spaceships and go to Mars. You know what we really do? And we hadn't done that yet, by the way. We take a little bit of earth and put it in spaceship, and a little bit of earth goes to Mars. That's what we do. Because you and I can't live on Mars. We got to live on earth. We did that when we went to the moon and so on. We even do that when we fly in high-altitude aircraft. We got to take a little bit of earth with us. Agur is concluding here that the Creator is such a being that he is higher than all, greater than all, and you and I have no place in this discussion. We are part of the created. And we should be humble before God. And as you'll see, we'll get here in a moment, we don't. We think we are God, or at least we act like it. But that's Agur's first conclusion when he looks at nature and creation, and he says, I guess we're nothing before this Creator. You don't think so? How about that tornado? Or how about a number of any other things? So Agur's first conclusion from looking at nature regarding the invisible attributes of God, the eternal power and the divine nature, is God is all four of those things. He is God, and we are not. So that leads us to his second discussion, verse 4 and 5. I call them God axioms. Every word of God proves true. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Do not add to his words, lest he rebuke you and you be found a liar. So now, as he has concluded that God is God and we are not, then let's say it this way. He looks at the creator of the universe and says, the creator of the universe, because he's the creator of the universe, proves true. He defines what is true. I should align myself with him. I should align myself with the Creator. Let him be my shield and my refuge. Because if I don't align myself with the Creator, then what did Romans say? I am stepping outside the boundaries of truth and I begin to suppress the truth. So I have to align myself with the Creator. I have to. Because I'm not the Creator. And in doing that, I find shield and refuge. And if I don't do that, I'm adding to his truth, and I will be rebuked. Pardon me. So the second conclusion then from Agur as he thinks about nature is, I must align myself with God. I must be humble before God because I'm not God, and therefore I must align myself with the Creator as I sat on the back porch looking at the dove and considering all the truth about God's creation. Number 3, verse 11 and 14. I said we won't have time to cover everything he said, but this is the next thing that he talks about that really zeroes in on what we're saying. He says, verse 11, there are those who curse their father and do not bless their mothers. There are those who are clean in their own eyes but are not washed of their filth. There are those, how lofty are their eyes, how high their eyelids lift. There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the power from off the earth, the needy from among mankind. Agur realizes as he begins to consider nature, of which man is part, he looks at mankind. Now, I can see him on the back porch thinking about the people he's known. Remember, he's old and tired and worn out. And he's thinking about the people he's known. And he begins to realize how many people he's known that are violating God's created order. Things like not obeying your parents or honoring your parents. They don't bless their fathers and their mothers. They curse them instead. Nature teaches that so clearly. You look at the animal kingdom, it's a beautiful thing to see how the animals take care of their offspring, and the offspring submit to the animals that bore them, and how that works. Han and I watch some of these nature TV shows. There's one that's produced by a guy out of Utah that's kind of a Christian-based nature show. It's really good. I don't remember the name of it, but ask later and I'll look it up for you. It's a really good show. And you learn so much about the harmony of nature and how things work. And one of the things that is amazing is the consistent nature of how parents take care of their children. Agur looks around and says, well, I see man not doing that. I see man violating the created order. And you know what happens? It ends up in destruction. Because they think they're right. They think they're God, who are clean in their own eyes. They have failed to realize that the creator of this universe is much greater than I am, that while I should be aligned with him, instead I am challenging him, and I'm suppressing his created order. I'm suppressing his truth by hating my mother, by hating my father. And you know what it's doing? It's leading and bringing about destruction. Whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among mankind. Agur realizes something really fascinating. The brokenness of mankind leads to man's self-destructive behavior. Our own self-destructive behavior. In our homes, mom and dad doesn't get along. Husband and wife fight. They're violating God's created order. They're not supposed to do that. And guess what happens? It becomes destructive. You go to work and you don't work with the work ethic that God told us to do. And now the workplace becomes disrupted. Before you know it, the boss has to fire somebody, and it's all kinds of destruction going on because we violated God's created order. You told a lie on your taxes, and now here comes Dale or Matt back in the day knocking on your door. And you find yourself looking out of the bars in prison because you lied. You violated God's created order, and it brought about self-destruction. That's what Agur is seeing. Man is challenging at every turn, is challenging you, we are challenging at every turn God's created order, and it's bringing about our own self-destruction. And it leads to need. Verse 15, 16. 3 things are never satisfied. 4 never say enough. The grave, the barren womb, the land that never satisfied with water, the fire that never says enough. Agur turns his mind to emptiness in this world. Emptiness that cannot be filled. And he begins, and I think for a reason, with the grave. The result of man's self-destructive behavior, the grave. Here I stand over an empty grave with a tombstone at the end with my name on it, realizing that I'm the one that put me there. My own self-destructive behavior, my own challenging God. And now I realize I have a need. I've got a need that seemingly cannot be filled because that grave is there. It ain't going anywhere, friend. The barren womb was given as a comparison to that. The mother and father that want a child but can't seem to have a child. and the pain they have from that, the emptiness that comes from that. The desert that needs water, it rains, it's just quick as it rains over, it's a desert again. It just can never get enough water. The fire that burns and just keeps burning as if somebody just keeps pouring fuel on it. It's never enough. Agur is contemplating the vacuum of mankind, the emptiness of mankind, the emptiness that we bring on ourselves because we do not align ourselves with God. Instead, we challenge God. We think we are God. And so now we're empty. We stand over an empty grave, and our name is the one on the tombstone. Then he turns his attention away from man, almost as a relief. Thank heavens, because this was getting really heavy. Almost a relief. I see him now, he's on the back porch, and he looks up in the sky. Remember, he's doing exactly what the Apostle Paul asked him to do. He's reading God's other Bible here. He's looking at nature. 3 things are too wonderful for me, for I do not understand. That statement's a clue. That statement is indicating that there is truth in creation that goes beyond my ability to grasp. There are truths in this world when I look at God's creation that represent the invisible attributes of God. These truths that are too wonderful for me, they are beyond my understanding. But I'll still nevertheless look at them and think about them. The way of an eagle in the sky. A year or so ago, Han and I was working in Virginia, and I had a day or two gap in my work, and so we took a little trip out to West Virginia. And there's this train ride that you can go up into the mountains of West Virginia. George Washington surveyed this area, and I think he called it the Trough, maybe. It's kind of a canyon that goes up into the mountains. And it follows a river, the Potomac River, actually. And it's a kind of a unique place where there are a lot of eagles that live in the cliffs of these canyons. And as you ride this train, you see all these eagles flying up, just flying up there above. And every once in a while, if you watch close, you'll catch one dive down and grab a fish and come back up. It's really something to see. If you like that kind of thing, it's well worth the visit there to West Virginia. The way of an eagle in the sky. What is that eagle doing up there? Circling around like that for hours and hours. Why is he doing that? Why isn't he just over in his nest taking it easy? Why is he doing that? Well, guess what? There's a purpose behind why he's doing that. That eagle's got a really good eye, and he's watching that water for a fish. And as quick as he sees one, he's going to go on a dive bomb like you can't believe. Hit the water like a bomb goes off and come back up with a little old fish. There was purpose in what he was doing. Agur looks at that eagle and says, you know what? Sometimes life feels to me like there's no purpose, no meaning, but nature says there is. When I look at that eagle, I see it. Or the serpent on a rock. Now, if you've never seen this is fascinating. You know, a snake can climb right up the side of a rock. It's just pretty cool. They got scales, and those scales are almost like little bitty feet, and they can grip. If there's any surface on that rock at all, they can go right up the side of a rock. And you know why they do that? I found this out in the Wichita Mountains some years ago, at which point immediately after I found out, I fell about 20 feet. So I was not watching carefully enough. They do that to get up on top of that rock so they can lay in the sun and get warm, because they're a cold-blooded animal. They don't have a metabolism that makes them naturally warm. So they like to get up on top of rocks and lay there and get warm. There's purpose in what they're doing. Agur looks at the things that God has made and said, there is clearly and obviously purpose in life. Or the way of a ship on the high seas. Han loves to take, when we're on our travels, she'll see a sailboat. She loves to take pictures of sailboats. If you look at our Google photographs, we got a bunch of them. And they are kind of interesting, a boat out on the water with a sail, and it's sailing out there. It's really something to see. And you look at it, and at first you're not sure if it's even going anywhere. You know, and what's holding the sails out, it looks like it's just sitting there. But you don't have to watch very long to realize there's purpose in what it's doing. It's headed somewhere. It's going somewhere. Or the way of a man with a virgin or a young girl. I love this. This is painting to me a beautiful image. Here comes this hairy-legged old boy who stinks to high heavens, who's got a 2 or 3 day growth of beard. But there's a girl in town that he wants to impress. So he's going to get in the shower and scrub all that off, shave that hair, put on Axe or whatever it is the young people use today. Not Axe anymore, Isaac, something else. Whatever they use. My day it was electric shave. That's matter of fact, I just ran out of electric shave. I need to get some more. I'm an old man, that's what we use. He scrubs it all off. He cleans them. He brushes his teeth and cleans them out. And this old boy that was crawling in the mud and dealing with dead animals and whatever else he was doing shows up at her door, and he has put on his best effort to try to win her heart. And as rough and as ugly as he might have been yesterday, he's yes ma'am and no ma'am and opening the door and closing the door. And the way of a man with a virgin is amazing. The power that God has placed with a woman to change a man. That's exactly what God said marriage was about. A woman being suitable, exactly what a man needs. And conversely. Agur looks at that and says, I see purpose. I see reason in life. That's not just some random accident because it happens all the time. Every day it happens. It happens in nature. We watched another video of these two birds. This one bird somewhere, he goes and gathers up all these little blue pieces of trash. And I mean, the caps off of ballpoint pens and blue leaves and blue whatever he can find. And he creates this little nest with all this blue stuff around it. And then he gets out in the middle of that blue stuff and he dances like crazy. And he'll dance like crazy until a girl of his species will come along and watch him. And she'll watch him for a little bit until finally she says, nah, not him. And she goes on. And he go get some more blue stuff and bring it back and some more blue stuff. And by the time he's through, it's on this video channel that I was talking about. There'll be a pile of just junk there. And he's just dancing like crazy. And finally, some female bird will come along and say, that's my man right there. That's not random. The creator that created that isn't creating randomness. There's purpose behind it. There's reason for it. Agur, as troubled as he might be, looked at what things God had made and said, there's reason for this. There's purpose for this. Verse 24. 4 things on earth are small, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they provide their food in the summer. The rock badgers are a people not mighty, yet they make their homes in the cliffs. The locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank. The lizards you can take in your hands, yet it's in the king's palaces. Confession time. I will bring David into this. We had red ants on that sandhill we grew up on. And one of the things we loved to do was take firecrackers and blow up those red ant beds. And it was amazing. You could blow it up and blow it up and blow it up, and they'd come right back. And they're probably still there, David. They're probably right out in that driveway, right where we left them. Now, why are they doing that? They're striving for something. There's purpose, and they're striving for that purpose. Rock badger's a rabbit. Rabbit, homes in the cliffs. Try to catch one. Purpose behind what they're doing. The locusts, in the 70s, there was a plague in Oklahoma. It was I think it was like the farmers know this, it was like a thing. There were grasshoppers, just amazing amount of grasshoppers. And it was like biblical proportion kind of thing. It was about the mid-70s, I think, something like that. And these grasshoppers cover everything, and they just eat everything. And David and I, we were kids at the time, we would play, and we would make the noise as if these grasshoppers were marching. You know, it was a massive thing. These grasshoppers were pushing and striving towards something. And I'm about to tell a story that will horrify my wife. So, my office is a third-car garage that I have turned into an office. And so it's got a door that goes to the outside and then a garage door that closes. But I fixed it up and I air condition it. And that's where I work during the day. I have a pet lizard. Yes, I have a pet lizard. I can't keep him from coming in there. He's that kind that's about that long with the stripes, you know. You see him out in the flower beds. They love to eat bugs. I tried to keep him from coming in and I gave up because he eats bugs and he helps keep the bug population down. And so in the summer when it gets really hot, I look over at the door and there's a little gap in the weather stripping, and I don't know how he gets through that gap, but he'll come right through that gap. He'll pop through that gap and he looks up at me as if to say, "Are you going to kill me?" And then he darts under the toolbox and he's in there through the day, and he'll pop, and then toward the end of the day he'll go out. I cannot stop this animal. I can't. It's just a reality of life. This little lizard, they don't bite, they don't hurt you. They're good, they eat bugs. So. He's striving and pushing and fighting for something because there's purpose. Now, Agur looked at creation, looked at the things that God made and said, man's a mess, but creation has a purpose, and all of creation around us is striving and fighting for that purpose. Then verse 29. 3 things are stately in their tread, 4 are stately in their stride. The lion, which is the mightiest among beasts and does not turn back before any. The strutting rooster, the he-goat, the king whose army is with him. Now these all paint something very beautiful, something that has achieved the ultimate in its situation, you might say. The lion. Nobody challenges the lion. That roar is really loud, and it's really something. It's the king of the jungle, they call it, this lion. The strutting rooster. You know, we had roosters growing up, and chickens. Some of you have chickens. And there's nothing quite like a rooster who is quite easy to best, by the way, out in the yard, strutting around like he's the boss of everybody, including the dogs and everybody. He's just strutting around. He's the king. He's made it to the pinnacle of the beauty in his life. That's what he is, and he's proud of that. Or the he-goat. We had goats as a kid, and until we found them on top of our 1975 Plymouth, at which time we quit having goats. Not too long after that. But the male goat is always the first one up. He's the king of the group. He leads the way. He's the one you'll find up in the tree eating the leaves. Wayne knows what I'm talking about. Because he's achieved his purpose, he's found beauty. Agur looks at creation and says, man's a mess because he challenges God. But when I turn to creation, I see incredible purpose. I see creation striving towards something better, and I see it in its own way accomplishing incredible beauty. That's what he sees in all things that have been made, this creator. Then he concludes, rather abruptly, if you have been foolish, exalting yourself, if you have been devising evil, put your hand on your mouth. For pressing milk produces curds, pressing the nose produces blood, pressing anger produces strife. Let me reword, let me say Agur's statement here in a different way. God in nature has been shouting to us about purpose and beauty and striving and being aligned with the Creator's will and not challenging the Creator. Creation is shouting that to us. What are you going to do about it? The grandkids always find one thing I say in a sermon to be scandalized by, and they're about, here it is. What are you going to do about it? Sit there and pick your nose? That's what Agur says. That's what he said. Pressing the nose produces blood. Is that what you're going to do? Sit there and pick your nose? God has shown you His invisible attributes in creation. God's other Bible has made it clear. Even if you don't know this one, the other one makes it clear. And here's the deal. That lightning's coming. If you're living in a challenge toward God's created order, if you're not aligning yourself with God's created order, His wrath is coming. And He's right to do it. He is absolutely just to do it. Because you, in your choices to defile the created order, have challenged Him and suppressed His truth. Every sermon, every service, we offer an invitation. That invitation, we invite you while the song is being sung to come have a seat on the front. Here's what we are inviting you to do. We have a baptistry here filled with water. I haven't spoken any about Jesus Christ, though there are some messianic truths in this text. Jesus Christ did exactly what Agur asked. He ascended to heaven and He descended to earth. He's been both places. Jesus Christ did what those first things Agur was talking about. He is the Creator, and He also solves this sin problem we've got. By being born again, your old man dies, and God creates within you a new man, a new person. It's like hitting the reset button of all reset buttons. You start over. That happens when you are buried with Jesus in baptism and risen to walk a new life, Romans 6. We offer that every service. You come here this afternoon, that invitation will be offered again. You come here Wednesday night, it'll be offered again. It's offered 24/7. Look my phone up on the internet. It's there. Anytime. If you find you've been challenging God's created order and it's time for you to come in alignment with God's created order, we want to do the best we can to offer you an invitation to get right with God, because His wrath is coming. If we can assist you in this way, come forward, have a seat on the front while we sing the song that's been selected.